Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this Tuesday morning. I hope you had your coffee or at least tea. So you're all freshened up, and you're ready to go. So today we'll be covering Google Trends for elections. As Dr. Sabaria mentioned, I used to be a journalist, so I think maybe some of you may have seen me before. So covering like all sorts of political news, general news. So well, basically now I'm with Google News Initiative, and if some of you are wondering what is Google News Initiative, it's basically this division under Google that works very closely with journalists, newsrooms, and also news associations. So part of what we do under GNI, which is a short acronym for Google News Initiative, is that what we do is that we have a division called News Lab, which I'm under. So what we do is actually we provide free workshops on different skill sets. It can be data journalism, it can be data visualization, which is what some of you will be covering later this week. And then it could also be things like how do I effectively use internet tools that are free for my reporting? How do I do fact checking as well? And so on and so forth. So that's part of under what we call News Lab. And you would see there's a website link here, g.co/news training, where you will be able to find modules for some of the things that we will be covering this week, some of them which are not. But there are some modules that are available online, which you can do at your own pace and time. It's only about like 5 minutes long for each module, and most 10 minutes tops. So it's pretty short and sweet. So that's also one way for you to like pick up new things if you are interested to learn more. Second part of GNI is basically what we do is that we work with news organizations on the business side. So there'll be a team that works with news organizations talking about how do you drive innovation, revenue growth, subscribers or readership and all viewership and all that. So and the third part actually works with news associations. So it can be your NUJ, your OneIFRA, and so forth. And what they actually do is to cultivate this environment whereby everyone's very supportive of each other. Instead of fighting and competing against each other because we're all in different newsrooms, how can we find ways to seek to collaboratively work together and grow the industry as a group? So that's basically the short end version of what GNI is. So I'll move on to cover what we're going to talk about today, which is Google Trends. So a lot of people get very confused and they're wondering what is Google Trends, and maybe some of you don't even know what is the Google Trends website. So if you actually go to this website called trends.google.com, you'll be able to see that, well, basically this is the web page that Google has developed to just show you what are people looking for and searching for on the internet. So of course, we know that Google is the main search engine globally. So that every day there are basically billions of searches done on the internet, just on Google alone. So it's not possible to measure every single search out there. But what the Trends team does is that they take a fraction of the Google searches that are on the internet. But the sample size is large enough to basically tell you a pattern, a trend, right, of what people are looking for within a particular area, within a particular time period. And so what they try to do is that by sampling this data, they can look at a data set that is representative of all Google searches and then find whatever insights that can be processed within minutes of an event happening in the real world. So then what they do is that they scale the number from a range of 0 to 100 based on the topic's proportion to all searches and all topics. So, okay, what it basically means for you as journalists is that you're always wondering what is trending on the internet, or like you're looking for tips and clues as to what are on the minds of people, right? Trends is one way to get your story ideas. So especially when in times of like going into election season, you'll be wondering what are people most curious about? What do they really want to know? And you might not have the answers. You can do your street walks pop and talk to a few people, but they might not be the representative of what everyone in Malaysia or within the state itself is thinking or wanting to know, right? So you could actually head over to Google Trends to find out, okay, what are people searching for on the internet, especially in the run up to like election season, maybe during campaigning period or on polling day or on like candidate registration day. So those things can be information for you to find story ideas, which you can then work on. So how trends work is that you realize that the numbers are all indexed and scaled to from 0 to 100. And what we call by normalizing it is that when we look at a search interest over time for a topic, we're looking at that interest as a proportion of all searches on all topics that is happening on Google at that time and place. So we're basically looking at, for example, if you're searching for the keyword, the topic is banana, we'll probably look at banana for searches within Kuala Lumpur. We'll probably look at, out of all the searches that are happening in Kuala Lumpur, how many percentage or perhaps an aggregation of it are actually searches for banana. So, and then we scaled it from between 0 to 100, meaning the highest search interest within that time period, say, for example, in the last 1 month. So, and the reason why normalization is important is that why we do not, give you an absolute search number or search volume is because over time, because we give you historical search data from like 2004 until now, and we all know that over time, from 2004 and now, obviously, internet users have increased, right? So it would not be a fair assessment to give you an absolute search volume number, because then all you would see is just an increasing growth all the time. And also, it wouldn't be fair to make a comparison between two different places, because then you'll be affected largely by the population size. So, for example, if we were to compare searches within between Indonesia and Singapore, if we were to only look at search volume instead of search interest, then what's going to happen is that Indonesia is always going to have a higher proportionate for any topics at all that are being searched, even if it's like a non-issue in Indonesia, simply because of the population size. So basically what we do, then we index those, after we normalize the data, we index it from 0 to 100 with the highest point as 100, and everything else is relative to the figure of 100. So I hope that clarifies. I know it can sound a little bit confusing and a lot to take in, but I hope you managed to get it. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to drop them into chat, and I'll make sure I get back to it by the end of the session. So then the other thing that you realize with Google Trends is that the trends data is broken down by topics, time frame, location as well. It can go down to state and also city level. And then also it's you can also search by language. But just as a caveat to let you know is that Google Trends is language agnostic, meaning that if you say, for example, you were to search for the word cat in Bahasa, kucing, it will automatically default by asking you, are you searching for cat, the topic? So what Google does is that it is able to understand that, when people search for the same word, keyword in different languages, it actually means the same thing, and they'll group them under the same topic. But however, if you only want to search for the word cat in, say, Bahasa or in Chinese, then you can enter that, and they will only show you results for that specific keyword that you're looking for, cat, and only in that, for searches within that language itself. And also, just so you know, if you're wondering, oh my God, there's so much data here, is it safe? So, well, to let you know that trends data is actually anonymous. So we do not provide you a demographic breakdown. There is no breakdown on, gender, race, age groups. So we're not able to tell you that. We don't even have that data. So, and also, like, we don't track IP addresses. So basically what it looks at is just right down to a larger area, a city area. So that's the best that you can do. So, and you will notice is that when you're on the Google Trends page, they have real-time data and long-term data. So real-time data covers the last 7 days, whereas long-term data goes all the way back to 2004. And you will notice that if you're using Google Trends on your mobile phone versus the version that you see on your laptop or desktop, your web browser, it has a difference, because you will notice that with a lot of things that you do, not just Google Trends, but any other of the workshops that you're attending this week, you will notice that there are a lot of limitations when you're using mobile phone. So say, for example, for trends, the example would be that when you narrow down by time frame, you will not be able to do a custom time range on a mobile phone. But if you're on your web browser and you were to like try to do a search over time and you select the time frame, you can actually do a custom time range. With trends as well, you will notice that you're able to also do like, trending searches, subscriptions as well. I'm just going to quickly show you how that works by opening my trends page. So you will notice that this is how it's going to look like for you. You will see that if you click on the hamburger top left, you will see there's this option. It opens up. So here you go. So trending searches is basically to show you daily search trends and real-time search trends. And then, of course, you can filter by country. And for real-time search trends, you can also filter by categories. So obviously, most of the time, you will notice that for Malaysia, you will see that usually the trending ones are normally on sports topics, sometimes on the market. Market reports, especially now it's early in the morning, is always the market analysis. But when it comes down to, say, huge news breaks like an election, you will see that also trending here. Then the other thing is that subscriptions, you will notice that if I were to click here, go back, I see that there is a subscriptions button. I click on it. And well, I have already 3 set up, but if you don't have any, it will appear blank for you. So what you got to do is got to click on the plus sign on the bottom right. And you'll be able to see that you are able to search a topic that you want to monitor. So instead of going back to trends all the time, if you're doing a monitoring for a long-term story or a feature that you're trying to work on, and so what you got to do is probably just put in the topic, for example, let's see, maybe I'm trying to monitor this person. So I'll put in the topic, and then I'll select like the region would be, say, Malaysia. And what I'm going to do is that, where is it? Here you go. So, and I can then decide how often I want it to be, once a week or once a month, right? And the other thing is that probably if I were to go to trending searches, I would then be able to see, I want to know what are trending searches, maybe in like Malaysia, and then whether I want it as a top daily search trend, a majority of daily search trend, all daily search trend, and how often do I want it. And then I can hit unsubscribe and email it to me. So that's that. And the other thing that you would probably notice is that one thing that you would notice is that when you go on a trends page, you need to key in on something to land on the trends results page, right? So there is one little hack that I would want to teach you guys, like how you can actually look at long-term data without specifying a search term. Say, for example, I just want to know what is trending in Malaysia and say the last days or the last 60 days. You will notice that that's quite impossible to do on just the trends page. And there is a little hack that you have to go about it. So I'll just quickly show you the video here, but I'll also do a demo after this. You see that you need to key in a search topic in order to land on a page, on this page. And so what I'll do is that I'll just key in anything and then I'll remove it after. And I'll make sure that my country and my time frame parameters are correct. And I'll be able to see all the searches within that area, within a time frame, all the top searches. So now I'm just going to do a quick demo for you so that you can actually see it yourself. Okay, so you can see that this is what you're going to look at. So you would have to then navigate to the trends results page. So say, for example, I would put in name, for example. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I need to key in something. And maybe what I want to look at is what's going on in Malaysia in the last 30 days, right? I want to look at what Malaysians looking for in the last 30 days, what are the search queries. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this. Click on the 3 little dots, click on remove, And you'll see here. So in the last 30 days, the search queries in Malaysia, the top search queries in Malaysia has been on Commonwealth Games, Bangladesh versus Zimbabwe, Emergency Declaration, Big Mouth, the Korean drama, Purple Hearts. So you can see all of this, right? Now, these are the search queries. And then there is also the search topics. Search topics is basically the topics that are related to the queries. So say, for example, what we saw earlier was people searching about the Commonwealth Games for this year. So obviously the topic that falls under that will be the Commonwealth Games, right? Or Commonwealth of Nations. And then you also have like people searching for like, football matches. So then you would have the Premier League as a topic, right? That appearing here. Now, then the next thing that you probably want to look at is like I mentioned, search term, search topics, right? So there's this thing called search term, and there's also things like topics, which is like they'll tell you whether it's a virus or a person, personality, or a company. So topics are basically the groups of terms that share the same concept in any language. I mentioned earlier that Trends is language agnostic, meaning you can search for a topic in any language and Trends will still group it together as under one topic. For example, you want to search for the word cat, kucing, meow, or whatever the language, right, that you want to use for the same keyword, they will group it under the same topic. Now, however, if you were to select the option of search term, it would show matches for all terms in your query only in that language given. So say, for example, I were to look for coronavirus and I search for this, I selected the search term instead of the topic of virus. What's going to happen is that it's only going to show me the search trend pattern for the word coronavirus spelled in English in exactly that same spelling that you're seeing on the screen, which is coronavirus. If people want to search for coronavirus in other languages, you're not going to be able to capture that because you selected search term instead of topic. Now, if people misspelled as well, that's not going to be basically captured when you select search term because you're looking for this exact same spelling. So there are also people who do like misspellings, like maybe they misspelled coronavirus with a K instead of a C. But Google knows that they're looking for the virus, so they'll still capture that search under this topic itself. Now, one example that I'll probably show you guys that is probably would exemplify this is, for example, on the Indonesian president. So if I were to search for, say, maybe I just put there Jokowi, right? But Google Trends already know I'm already looking for this person called Joko Widodo, who's the president of Indonesia. And this will be the topic, right? President of Indonesia, Joko Widodo. That's the topic. Now, if I were to select search term, what's going to for Joko Widodo, or like spell Jokowi with maybe a double O or a double I, it doesn't take into that account. So it doesn't represent the full entire absolute, it doesn't represent the entire capture of, what people are looking for, because it doesn't to account of all these misspellings and also like different variations or even like the same thing that are being searched for in different languages. However, if I were to select the topic itself, Joko Widodo, president of Indonesia, this would capture what everything, like everyone who are searching for this person in any language, including misspelling or using different variations of his nickname. So that's to be more accurate and say the president of the Philippines, right? And then this will basically capture, for example, everyone who's searching for Bongbong Marcos, the president of the Philippines, right? As opposed to me searching this, it could then, include like basically anyone who might have the same name as well as the president of the Philippines. So that's an example that I can show you. Now, of course, in the event of certain breaking news in certain places, you might not have a topic, right? For example, when coronavirus first broke out in early 2020, Trends has not placed coronavirus under the category of a topic yet, because it's a new thing. So then the only way for you to search for how people are looking for it on the internet is to select coronavirus search term. So that would be one example. Another one is when there are, say for example, when the Thai protest broke out, you wouldn't, and a lot of the times they use very colloquial Thai words to represent, the protest movement. So you wouldn't be able to find it under Google Trends topics because those are not categorized and indexed under a topic. So you would then have to search for it in local language as a search term. So that's one, another example. So when you get to Google Trends page, you will notice that here on what you're seeing right now, you'll notice that you can see that you can search up to 5 different comparisons. So say, for example, I'm comparing here between Ismail Sabri, Najib Razak, Zahid Hamidi, and Ibrahim. I can add one more, right? And so it's free to use. There is no payment involved. You don't need to pay or subscribe to anything. It's really free for anyone to use on the internet. So you can notice that you can go up to 5 different comparisons. And of course, you can narrow it down by country, by a time frame. You can select categories if you want more granular data. And you can also select options for like web search, YouTube, images, Google Shopping, or news, right? And you will see that there's also a description of topic from, right below the search. So like this is the topic is the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, President of UMNO, leader of opposition. So, and then you can also download, embed, or share the data. So, which is very, very simple. Once you download, it usually comes in a CSV file. And if you embed it, you can embed it onto your website. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that the data is basically normalized, and then it's indexed like from 0 to 100, right? So the largest volume of search on any topic is always represented by 100. And then all other values are in relation to the highest search volume within that time frame that you selected. So, and then you will notice that you're also able to go down to city level data. So order by default, it will show you sub-region, right? Which is basically all the states. And then you can select by city. So you can see the search interest according to city as well. And then you can see that there are related queries I mentioned to you earlier, and also the related topics. So what it does is that it shows you what people are searching for. But what we always recommend is that instead of selecting top, it's always recommended to search for rising, because it shows rising queries shows basically the biggest increase in search frequency since the last time period. So, and results marked with the word breakout basically means that it has a tremendous increase, probably because these queries are new, they came out of nowhere, and suddenly people start searching for it. And if you're monitoring for news, it's always better to use rising. So how do you embed trends data? So you can basically embed it by clicking on the embed icon, which is that bracket looking thing, like the open and close bracket looking thing, symbols. So when you click on it, this pop-up will appear, right? And what you got to do is then just copy the embed code and paste it onto your CMS. That's it. Simple as that. Now, if you're trying to freeze in time the data that you have, for example, I'm doing a story and on the search interest towards, say, well, someone mentioned Najib and the SRC case, right? So maybe I'm doing a search interest over the last 24 hours towards Najib and the SRC case. So then what's going to happen is that I want to look at the last 24 hours only, right? Because that was the day that, the federal court appeal began. So that was day 1. So then I would then uncheck this button, keep data updated. Because what's going to happen is they're going to freeze my data in time. It's going to show me that only the last 24 hours, and it's not going to update itself. If I keep data updated, means that the data will keep updating itself, and that would alter the way the graph looks on my website, right? Because then over time, obviously, the search interest would drop down as the trial progresses. So, and you can download all the data from Google Trends and visualize it in Flourish. So if you do not know, there is this data visualization tool called Flourish. It's very, very powerful and very useful. Another colleague, another trainer who's going to train you guys later this week came. He would introduce Flourish to you. But just as a note, like I will also drop it into chat that you can actually sign up for Flourish for free. You don't have to pay any money. So if you have a Google account, Gmail account, you can easily just sign up for Flourish using your Gmail account. And I don't know if you guys know, but like I'm sure everyone knows Canva, but like Canva bought over Flourish was like 2-3 months ago. So you can actually also integrate your Flourish visualization into Canva as well now. The other thing about Flourish is that you will notice that there is also this thing called Newsroom Access. Now, if you're a freelancer or like, your newsroom never asked for Newsroom Access, you could just use your own personal account. The difference is that with Flourish is that if you're using signing up as a personal account using your Gmail, what's going to happen is that when you publish any visualization, those are publicly viewable. Someone can view it, someone can copy it. Now, if you don't want that to happen, you think that, oh, I spent time on it. I think like this data set is uniquely mine. It's not public data and I want to like keep it that way. Then you could actually request for Newsroom Access. So what you're going to do is that if you head over to the Flourish website, right, you scroll all the way down and you're going to see this option to select newsrooms. And you will see that you could apply for Newsroom Access. So every newsroom is only entitled to one newsroom account. And that person who holds the key to the newsroom account should share it with the rest of the colleagues within the newsroom so that everyone is able to also use Flourish as well. So with the Newsroom Access, basically what it means is that your visualizations that are published are all private. They are not like searchable on Google. And yeah, that's basically, I think, the only major difference. Now, what I'm going to show you is that if you are doing, say, a trend story and you want to visualize it into Flourish, how can you do it? It's very simple. Say, for example, here's one that colleague of mine in South America did. So he compared the data, the search trends data for 2 different presidential candidates in Argentina. One is the existing president. And so then you compare it with the candidate. And so then you get like, you can do the last 90 days in Argentina. So you get this chart, right? Now, what you're going to do with this chart is to click on download and you will get a CSV file. And then you can obviously go to Flourish after that just to see how the Flourish visualization looks. So if you sign in, you select new visualization. You can actually select line chart race. Now, line chart race is the one that shows you, it's like who is moving faster. So you can also do that for like your actual polling results as well. You could also use that as a data visualization pattern or design, out of the many dozens that they have on Flourish. So basically for this one, if you notice that on the data column, data tab, you will see that Flourish has all the data on a horizontal table format. Whereas whatever data that you downloaded from Trends, it appears as a vertical table format. So it's very easy. All you got to do is just hit on equals transpose. And then you put in your whatever cell, and then after that, I'll just type it as well into chat so that everyone can have a look. And then you will notice that you'll be able to change this table from horizontal to vertical format. And all you have to do is just copy this then onto Flourish, right? Yeah, once you copy, you remove the unnecessary dummy data that Flourish gave you. Make sure that you got it all correct. And then what you're going to do is then go on to make sure that your columns are all named correctly. You're going to preview. It takes a while for you to load the data, so you got to refresh it. Yeah, so once you refresh it, then you can even change the scoring type to scores. And then you can see how the two different candidates are basically moving on the trends chart. Okay, so I'm just gonna like show a quick demo for you guys on like how trends work. Basically, you can search over time. You can search different topics over time, compare topics by geography, and multiple search topics over time. So I'm just gonna do that real quickly right now. So first off, you could do compare by a search topic over time. Let's pick someone else. Let's see. Okay. So a search topic over time. So in the Malaysia in the last 12 months, this is by default because it detects your location and by default is always 12 months. Of course, I can change this into the last 90 days, right? And then I can compare different search topics over time, which is, say, for example, okay, so 2 different topics over time. I can keep on adding up to 5. And then I can also compare the same search topic over time in different locations. So say, for example, I put that in again. And here's how I do. You see these 3 little dots? You click on it, you can actually select change filter. When you click on change filter, you see but it says in Malaysia last 90 days, right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to select on Malaysia. And I'm going to go click on the arrow. See this little, let me do it again if that was too fast. See this little arrow that points to the right? I click on it. I can select a state. So I'm going to try, say, Johor, last 90 days. And I'm going to compare it with change filter. I can compare, of course, I can compare it overall with the entire country, but I want to compare state by state. So I'm going to select a different state. So say, for example, Kedah. Hit on OK. And I can see that right now it's showing me Ismail Sabri, searches for Ismail Sabri within Johor and within Kedah in the last 90 days. And I can see that it spiked way more in Kedah than it did in Johor. So clearly people in Kedah are more interested in Ismail Sabri. And you could also then correlate, you know, what are the particular news breaks, like what happened on June 16, right? That caused the spike. Or like what happened on like August 7 or like on August 1st. And you could also then, you know, see like if there are any related queries for this. In this case, there isn't any. The other day we did a different one. We did a different personality, and there was like some different search queries. So say for example, this is one other one, right? And you could then see, okay, Johor last 90 days. I could just change it back to Malaysia. And you could see the search queries are, you know, what are people looking for when it comes to Zahid Hamidi in the last 90 days in Malaysia. The related queries are always asking about his Setiausaha politic, the daughter, right? And in English or in Bahasa, or like the daughter's name, or like when they search for him, they also search for Najib Razak, so things like that, right? Yeah. So then this is can do, let's see, what else is there? Okay, so the other thing that probably would be interesting for you guys is to see a breakdown when you compare different personalities. Let's try a bit more by adding a few other people into the mix. Let's add one more. Okay, so let's see, we've selected in Malaysia last 90 days 4 different personalities. And then we can see this is the trending graph. Wow, okay. So then we get to see like compare breakdown by sub-region. So we can sort if you want to see which one first. Do you want to see Zahid first or like Najib first? But then you can also scroll over and mouse over, and you can see by state. So when you mouse over Sabah, you can see here such interest towards Zahid is only 7%, Ismail Sabri 18, Najib 74, and Muhyiddin 1. So you can go into different states and you can actually look at the breakdown. right? Say, for example, interest in Najib Razak is highest at Labuan Federal Territory, followed by Negeri Sembilan, Sabah, Penang, Johor. And then you can also see related queries for each different personality, right? Ismail Sabri, when it comes to Ismail Sabri, the search query is usually about his shirt, his very famous shirt. And then for Najib is usually tied to like his case. There's also searches for Zaid Ibrahim when it comes to Najib, or like Malaysia Chronicle, his court case, Raja Petra, Malaysia Gazette. For Muhyiddin, it's only like this two. So that's the long short of it. And let's see if there's anything more. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask you guys to do a short practice. So I'll give you guys about 3 minutes to do this, 3 to 4 minutes. So try to compare the search interest towards Najib Razak in the last 90 days in these 3 states, Johor, Pahang, and Sarawak. And as a journalist, put your thinking caps on. Think about it, right? Do the spikes that you see on the chart align with news breaks that occurred during that period of time? And I'll give you guys 3 to 4 minutes. In the meantime, while you guys are trying this out, I hope you manage to like start doing it. While you guys are trying it out, I will play a video for you guys to also watch while we wait.
This year has been extremely challenging for me. I am broken. And I am healing.
I'm here at the memorial wall. I wanted to do something to remember my mum.
For some reason, I'm having anxiety. Obviously, it's normal with everything that's going on right now.
I think I'm gonna take a break for a while.
You can get through it, and if you can get through it, there's a greater reward on the other side.
Just like anybody else, I'm just trying to do my little part to try and save my community.
I'm just really excited we're back open.
And I am smiling under my mask.
Incredible scenes on the day the fans came back.
Welcome back to the theater.
You guys, it's been so long.
You're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're just like, there I am.
Be your best. Never, ever, ever stop dreaming. I don't care what they tell you.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, find the defendant guilty.
I am proud to be Asian.
We are not drowning, we are fighting.
We cannot keep quiet about climate injustice. No action is too small.
We just have to band together as a community and get people's lives back.
Even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you managed to do this live practice. Okay, so the screen is back up. So compare the search interest towards Najib in the last 90 days in these 3 states, Johor, Pahang, and Sarawak. Give it a think. Do the spikes align with news breaks that occurred? Now, anyone want to give it a try? You can actually type in chat if you managed to do it earlier. What other interesting search queries that you see? Maybe there are a few such queries that you thought that was quite fascinating that would basically tell you what Malaysians are very interested in when they look for Najib on Google. Anyone want to give it a shot? Like you can unmute yourself. You can also type it into chat. Don't be shy. I realize that when people are online, they usually tend to be more shyer than they are in person. Anyone want to give it a go? Nobody? The chat's quite dead. Okay, do you guys know how to do it? I think that's the first question to ask probably. Are you guys able to do this? Are you guys able to use trend? Anyone had any issues trying to use trends? So I don't know if you guys know how to use it or you don't know how to use it. Yes, no issue. Okay. Okay, so the search results align with news breaks because a lot of it is related to the ongoing trial. Okay, any interesting search queries? No, quite dull and boring. What if you were to tweak it a little and change it from last 90 days to last 30 days, maybe? Or no, last 12 months. Let's try last 12 months because I think there was some, yeah, let's change from last 90 days to last 12 months for all 3 states. And if you're wondering how to do that, okay, you can see I did a demo. You can see that I can do change filter and then I can select the time, right? So I can select last 12 months. Okay. And then after that, I can scroll down and I can see interest by city. Okay, yeah. By far, yes, Pahang seems to be highest because also it could also because that's his home state. But you can also see like interest by city. You could look at, say, for example, yeah, you're not sure why Fauzi Marzuki, the musician, came out as well. So, well, then, you know, maybe you need to start looking and seeing, you know, why do people, when they search for him, they also search for other things. Yes, related queries show a lot of interest in this alleged new marriage. So yeah, people like gossip, right? So obviously the things that people look for, search for on the internet reflects the kind of like things that people are interested in. And apparently Malaysians are very, very interested in gossip. So this got a lot of attention. Now, one other example that we'll go back to here. One other example that I can, before I explain this, what is this? One other example that you can use trends for is this happened during COVID in Australia. So one of the fact checkers that we know in Australia, she actually subscribed to trends. So she gets email updates on trends every day on, like, you know, what are people searching for in Australia. And during the pandemic, during lockdown, she saw that she got this email one day, and usually most of the time, the trends, what they send to you, what they will show you what we're looking for on doing daily, right? And usually aligns with news breaks. So when something doesn't align with a news break, that's a bit odd. So she got the email one day that she subscribed to, and then so it shows one of the topics or search query that came out was not aligning with a news break that happened on a day. And so she decided to look into it, and basically it was something that people were sharing on social media. And so you will notice that naturally people forward you things on WhatsApp. And they also forward you and share you things on like Facebook newsfeed, right? Excuse me. And so what happens is that the first reaction that people usually get when they see a forwarded message on, say, WhatsApp, or when someone shares something on Facebook and they see it on a newsfeed, is that they will Google it up. So which is what happened in that case. People were forwarding a claim on COVID. So then basically people were forwarding on social media. So it's not a news break, but because people who then got the viral message started Googling it up. So I started seeing a like peak, right? There was a trending peak whereby, you know, today a lot more people search for this. So, and before no one's ever searched for this topic. So it suddenly jumped, which is why it appeared on trends. So then that gave that fact checker a story idea of like, hey, let's debunk this. And so she started asking around to find out where this content came from. And then so she managed to get hold of the content of what the claim is, and then she debunked it. Now that's one example of how you can use and apply that in Malaysia as well, not just for fact checking, but for like things, rumors, what people are saying on the internet, right? Especially when it comes to campaign season. And so when people start looking for things on the internet, then it shows up on trends. That can be a story idea for you to just go down, hit the ground, do your reporting, and find out what's happening. So we'll go into examples now. So I'll show you some examples of what different news organizations around the world did with trends data. Now, the one you're seeing on screen right now, this is a story done by Axios, and they got data from trends, and they visualize it in that first year in 2020 when COVID first broke out. How did people search for it? And when did search interest towards COVID jumped, right? So you can see that at the very start of the year on the left, right, it's quite a small, I would say like somewhat small number of searches. And then as we move on to by March, when, you know, COVID really started breaking loose in the US, you can see such interest towards COVID then started jumping astronomically. That's one example. Another one is this one, which is basically this trends page that is done by Google Trends just for COVID. I think the worldwide level of the trends page is still okay. However, I would say that, you know, data for the country level is not that updated anymore. I mean, it's not updated. It's not as relevant because the interest towards COVID has dropped, especially now things have opened up. But if you notice that, okay, I'm just waiting for this page to load. Okay, if you notice that if you go all the way down, you get to see that global trends, right? And so then I have to still wait for the internet to load. Okay, yes. So then I can then scroll all the way to Malaysia, alphabetical order. Okay, there you go. So I select Malaysia. And you can see that there is the search interest towards COVID. You know, why is it going so slow? Okay, I think this is like an internet error on my end. So then you can see that you interest towards COVID, interest towards like infections, and interest towards things like face masks, hand wash, hand sanitizer, and like washing hands. So it's very, very super basic. The other thing is the other example that I probably I'll get to more interesting examples. So like the other thing that people have been using trends data for is you know, to track like besides COVID, even before COVID. COVID is not the first disease that appeared. So like this was back in 2016. It's called, the website is called I'mNotFeelingWell.com. And so what they basically did was this was pre-COVID, right? Way before COVID. And so what they did was that they took the trends data for influenza. So such interest towards, so in the West especially, sorry, in the West especially, what you see is that there is always flu seasons in certain parts of the year. So when there's flu season, people tend to then search for like remedies, how to combat flu, where to get a doctor, where to find a doctor, what is like, you know, like what are the influenza symptoms. So then they start searching for trends data on like when people start searching for all these things versus actual influenza cases or like actual like cases within different places. And so that they see there's a correlation. The other example that's also very similar is using cancer instead of influenza or flu. And you can look at, this is done in the US. And it's called searching for health.com. And they will look at, search interest towards cancer, like, finding cancer symptoms, or like, where the cancer specialists are, which hospital to go to, versus the actual mortality rate. And then they see that there is also correlation, as you can see on the map. So then obviously researchers, journalists, then when COVID happened, they took back the same concept and they did a story as well. So in this case, at the Massachusetts General Hospital in the US, what they did was they look at internet searches on Google Trends, right, for gut symptoms. And then they compare it with actual COVID hotspots. And they noticed that, it matches. The other one was done by Washington Post. What they did was to compare all 50 states. So all 50 states in the US. And they looked at, what people are searching for on Google, like symptoms like loss of smell, loss of taste, and then versus actual COVID cases in those states. So they could see that at first it didn't really align, but then over time, as the pandemic wore on and spread across the country, they noticed that the more searches there are for the symptoms, then the actual case numbers also climb. So then this is another story done by the Washington Post as well. So it's called Last Year We Searched Google for how to tie a tie. Now we're using it to find a toilet paper. This was done also in 2020. This was on April 17, 2020. So what they did was they got trends data to compare between the same week of April 5th to 11, 2019 to April 5th to 11, 2020. So then they would see that, how life has altered for most Americans. It was basically, people were searching for things like how to get through the outbreak. And you can see the biggest difference is people went from how to train, searching about How to Train Your Dragon, the movie, to how to make a mask with fabric. So you can see how drastically different life in 2019 and 2020 is. And then this is the one other example that's done by the BBC in the UK, where they looked at trends data and they saw that online casino searches hit an all-time high during lockdown. Another one, this is done by the Washington Post as well. There was, I think towards the end of 2020, there was this sudden snowfall in Texas, which is very, very rare and unheard of. So what happened was that then, Texans started freaking out, right? They're like, okay, this has never happened. What do I do, right? How do I deal with this? So people in Texas was basically Googling for how to stay warm. Sorry, this was done last year in February, yeah. How to stay warm and how to fix frozen pipes. So you can see a spike for that in the state of Texas as compared to other states. And this is done by Time Magazine back in 2014. It's a bit more dated, but I figured that this is very relevant because it's also very simple and easy to do for us. So every year end, Time would do a recap for a few major key figures, newsmakers. So what they did was, one of the newsmakers that I had was Vladimir Putin, which is the screenshot that I took here. So then they took the Google Trends data for Vladimir Putin for the whole year 2014, and they look at the spikes and they align the spikes with the news breaks that happened. So this was when we're talking a lot about Ukraine, but the Ukraine issue has been happening since 2014. So this was when March 1st to 7th, when the whole Crimea annexation of Crimea started happening. And then there was also the MH17, which we all are very familiar with, in July, which also happened. So that whenever those incidents happen, such interest towards Putin also spiked. So this is a much more closer to our neighborhood, which is just down under our neighbor. So Google searches search for Singapore's new leader in rating. This was also taken from Trends by Bloomberg. So what they did was that when Singapore announced the new DPM, who's going to be the next PM, so then a lot of people started Googling for Lawrence Wong, because a lot of people didn't know who is Lawrence Wong, right? I mean, that 1 week, you could see a massive search spike for Lawrence Wong in Singapore. So Bloomberg did a story on that. Now, when it comes to elections, election season, right? When there's a national election, okay, state elections, by-elections not counted. When there's a national elections in certain countries, you'll be able to see a dedicated elections trends page. So like for the US, it's a large country, it's a huge market. So then, there is a dedicated trends page for the 2020 elections, where you can see that, there are such interests divided according to presidential candidates, big issues like key topics that matter to Americans, like for example, abortion, unemployment, healthcare, and so forth. And then they also show you trending searches on election, like what is such queries related to election. So usually people tend to ask things like, when is election day? We saw this in the Philippines recently as well. When is the election day? Where is the nearest polling center? Is polling day a public holiday? Or like, where do I find, like, who are the candidates? Who are the candidates for this election? So those are the usual queries that you will see people searching when it comes to the elections. So then I'll also show you some of the countries. Like this is New Zealand back in 2020. So they would it's a much more smaller country. So they have a much more simpler trends page, election trends page, where you can see such interest in political party, and political leaders, and then also like I think they did one on like just one simple one on topics. Then there's also the Canadian one, also broken down by key figures and key political parties. Then this one is the one done. Also, Australia had the elections this year, so they also have one where it showed like political parties, political party leaders, and then also like if you click on any one of it, it'll bring you to its own like trends results. And then they also have like broken down by like states in Australia, and also like by political issues as well. So Philippines, which the elections has ended in May, also had its own dedicated trends page for the elections. Now, here are the different ways that you can use Google Trends to cover an election. So you could use Google data to see how people are responding in real time to an event, right? This can be useful for you when you're monitoring the candidate registration day and also on polling day, right? Which candidate trended most on real time on like say polling day or candidate registration day. And second thing is using Google data to show a longitudinal view of how an election has shifted. So say, for example, when certain candidates have a spike on Google Trends during the campaigning period, or suddenly there was a breakout for this person, it appeared out of nowhere, no one had any interest in this particular candidate, and suddenly on polling day, this person's name shot up through the roof and everyone started searching for it, right? Could there have been something happening? Was there a news break, did an particular accident incident happen during campaigning period or on polling day or candidate registration day? So it can also it can be sometimes people Google because there's a news break, like maybe an accident happened with a candidate. That's why that name came up. But if there is no such things, right, then it could also be something that's going on, like I mentioned, under the radar, like on social media. Excuse me. Which in case, if like something happened on social media, this name suddenly started spiking, there's no news break, then as a journalist, you should go and ask yourself, why? Why is this happening? What happened? Then go and hit the ground and start doing your reporting. Sorry. So the other thing is that, so it could also be if it's a campaigning period, so maybe like over the time of like say the 1 week or 2 weeks of campaigning, maybe something happened that this candidate who was not that popular suddenly had a breakout on Google Trends. So then you could then start asking yourself, if there is no news break, then maybe you should go down to the constituency, right, or the Dun, and just to find out, what happened there, why have people suddenly started like searching for this person on Google, googling this person's name up. Is there a conversation shift, right, among the electorate, or has there been a change of interest? What is happening? So it's a good tip for you to just go hit the ground and find out what's going on. So third one is that using Google data to see how people around the world or within the country are searching for political issues, candidates, or parties. So this is interesting and useful for you when you look at the related queries, right? Search queries. So which is why I pointed out it to you. Is there anything interesting in the search queries box? Because you never know, right? What are people looking for can be a good indicator, a clue for you to work on your story. So you could see, maybe from the search questions, try to understand why certain political parties or candidates are trending higher in some states, right, as compared to other states. It can also offer clues or story ideas as to why interests differs between different areas. There could be issues of domestic migration, right? People work in different states, and sometimes they work in different states in large volume. Maybe there are a lot of Sabahans who are working in a particular state, a different state, and that could contribute to maybe a spike in another state towards a very local Sabahan politician, right? It could be issues like that. So then, then you could talk about domestic migration issues. Are these, are these Sabahans who are like, say, in a particular state in Peninsular Malaysia in large volumes, are they gonna like start traveling back to Sabah to vote? And why are they all interested in this very local Sabahan politician? So it could be like story ideas that just pop up, like, hey, I could do this story and work on it. And it could be a nice feature to go on to one of my campaigning pre-election, like election campaign stories, right? So then the fourth thing is that you could also use Google data to answer questions that people are searching. I mentioned earlier that, people tend to ask the very basic questions on Google when it comes to election season, like, what is polling day? Is polling day a public holiday? Who are the candidates? Where is my nearest polling center? Things like that. So looking at the related queries or search queries will offer you an indication of like, here are the things that people want to know. And so I should do an explainer or like top 5 things or top 10 things that you should know come election day. And you should explain it to them, right? And that will give you a very good story that basically people would want to read because these are the things that they're interested in. And if you want and you have the capacity to, you could even build an interactive story whereby you can actually allow people to select their location and you could show them the results for polling centers. Where is the nearest polling center based on the location that they're at? So that's actually a story that has been done by a publication in the US in LA, because a lot of Hispanics don't know how to read English. And so and they are also not as aware and tuned to all the English news websites and announcements, right? So what they actually did was they built a website that's in Spanish that actually allowed them to then search their voting location, and they will show them the nearest polling center that they can go to on election day. Yeah. So, and the last one is using Google data to see how issues or candidates compare. So it's a very simple thing to do, right? Like we saw, I compared different politicians on Google Trends. So it's a very simple, basic thing to do, but we also get to see what are the issues if you look at the related topics and queries. What are the issues that linger the most on people's minds, Malaysian minds? What are the things that they would like to search for when they search for this particular person? So this can be, very nice segue to give you other story ideas as well. I hope that was helpful for you. So let's do one more exercise. Let's take a few minutes, maybe about 3 to 4 minutes, to find the rising search queries in the last 90 days in Malaysia under the campaigns and elections category. look out for what are the search queries in the last 90 days under this category, campaigns and elections. It is 10:06 now. Let's just do it until like 10:10. So give it a try. Look at the rising search queries. And if you manage to do it, you can post in chat what are the rising search queries that you found. Okay, someone asked if you can search on trending searches. You will notice that you cannot search anything on trending searches. It just shows you the trending searches, like the daily one and the real-time one. Now, I actually asked for the last 90 days specifically, so you just need to do what you do normally on Google Trends, right? You can go to the searches on Google Trends. And then you remember that one that you can go up to 5 different comparisons. Just start removing the mock-up person or entity that you search for, and then keep it blank, remove that, and then select your category, which is campaigns and elections, and make sure that the time frame is the last 90 days. You should be able to get it. If someone has already got something, Zikri says that he saw on the search query, Bangsa Malaysia. Nazmi says he saw PKR election results. Anyone else? Malaysia Open 2022 results. Keputusan PKR 2022, Parti Harapan Rakyat Sabah. Yep. Yep, PKR elections results. So I think you guys all know how to do this, right? It's fairly simple. Yeah, Malaysian Open 2022 results though. I think it's actually sports. I don't know how it got categorized there. You can actually look it up if you want. You could Google it up as well. Like, why are people looking for this? Yeah, it's a badminton, I think. Yeah. So it's not supposed to appear in the campaigns and elections category, but somehow it got the slip. Probably there's some issues with the algorithm. So when we did this, if you're wondering how to do this, for those who don't know, okay, when you land on a trends page, it's like this, right? But you always have to put in something in order to go into the search page. So you have to put in something. So you can put in any dummy like topics, right? Banana, the fruit. So then what you can do is then I just need to adjust this to from last 12 months to last 90 days. And then I remove this. I click on the 3 little dots. I remove this. And then now I get like in the last 90 days, what are people looking for in Malaysia, which is like Mat Kilau, Commonwealth Games, Melon to Firdaus, Adibano. So what I'm going to do is I want campaigns and elections. So I put there. And I get campaigns and elections, and I will see. So this will obviously change drastically closer to election period. So once they announce an election date, you will see that within very close to campaigning period, or when the parliament is dissolved, you will see that this would start changing dramatically. When we ran this workshop in the Philippines a few months before elections, because their election date is fixed, so people were already campaigning, and their campaigning period is quite long as well. So they would see a lot of the search queries under campaigns and elections was very, very campaign related, because that was during campaign season. So different states will people will search for trends on search queries, or where the candidate is campaigning, especially the presidential candidates, the popular ones where they're campaigning. You'll see that in search queries. Okay, so I hope that was easy and simple enough for you guys to understand. If you have any questions at all, feel free to put it into chat. And as a resource, you will notice that there is this trends GitHub page. I don't think it's super great because it's very, very Western orientated. However, having something is better than nothing. Who knows what you'll be able to find there. So if you're curious and you want to see what GitHub data there is on trends, then you can go to this page. So maybe you might find something that's Asia related, but likely it's very, very US centric. You could also go to and follow Trends on Twitter. They do post updates on like, you know, new tricks and hacks on Google Trends or like interesting trends highlights. If you're interested to sign up for a newsletter, you could also fill out the Google form at this link, bit.ly/trends_newsletter. This is a daily newsletter where they highlight to you what are the major search trends for the day. It is very, very US centric again, but they do have a section for global trends pattern. If you're looking for Malaysia specific, there isn't any because Malaysia is a very small country. So, yep. And if you're wondering how did Washington Post manage to do those nice, great stories out of Google Trends data when we only have 5 free comparisons on Google Trends website, right? Now, the data is all free. All you have to do is just ask for it. So what Washington Post did was that they emailed the trends team at this email address, newslabtrends@google.com, outline what is it that they're doing with their story and what sort of data that they need. Of course, you have to be very specific. You can't be like, oh, I think I want to do a story about polling season. Could I get some polling season data for Malaysia? Those kind of requests will not get you any response because it's not detailed enough and it's not specific enough. And also, you should be using your work email to email them, because if you were to use your Gmail, they might think you're some random person and they'll not entertain you as well. So you have to be like using your work email saying that I'm a reporter or an editor for XYZ publication from Malaysia. Election is coming. We're doing election related story, or even if it's not election related, any story that you're doing that you're very specific with the data that you want. You could be like, I'm doing this story about XYZ topic, and I need data on these few topics. It can be more than 5 because you're limited by 5 only on the Trends website. You can be like, I need like specific data on this, like maybe 10 topics, or I want to do a comparison on all 14 states in Malaysia for this particular topic, for this exact time period, what date to what date. So if you're that specific and you're thorough and you explain why you need the data set for what kind of story that you're doing, they will respond to you. So again, I mentioned that, you know, there is also, at the beginning, I mentioned that there is also a training website that we have. So this is a training website. There is a module on Google Trends that is broken down to several different topics. The total and all for Google Trends is only 20 minutes. Also, a useful tip, if you are, you know, if you're worried that you might get your news website might get attacked by like DDoS and whatnot, then you should get your Newsroom webpage sign up, you know, to protect yourself from digital attacks come election season. Okay, that's a bonus. That's, I think, about it. So yeah, so if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask in chat. And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I hope you guys can go to menti.com and start filling in your feedback on using this ID. Let me know if it doesn't work. I'll get another ID. But if you have any questions at all right now, please feel free to ask. Anyone has any questions, you can also unmute yourself. If you find that typing is a hassle, you can also unmute yourself and ask the questions right now. Anyone has any questions? Unfortunately, we do not provide slides. I think the other speakers, they can, but as a policy, sorry, I realized that the code has changed. Hang on. Let me change, because the code expires every 2 days. I'm very sorry about that. So please use this code instead on menti.com. Let me just change that real quick as well on screen. Okay, as a policy with Google News Initiative, we do not provide slides, but what I will be doing is that I'll be providing UKM, Dr. Sabaria, her team, with sorry, trying to get through my thought, with a doc a doc of basically we call it a tip sheet, right? And this tip sheet will have links to whatever that I've showed you today. And it will also contain like a short guide on like how to use trends and also the relevant context for trends, like if you want to get like trends data for your stories. Okay, anyone else have any other questions? For data analysis, can I use Google data to create data? I'm not quite sure what your question is referring to. If you're talking about trends data to show, to illustrate a pattern, then usually what we would do, as I mentioned, I showed in an example, was to have trend data illustrated on Flourish. Say, for example, I'm looking at two different candidates. I think the easiest is to show you something that actually happened, right? So I can look at Philippines. I will do custom time range for election period. This was right before election. Let's just start with 1st of April to, okay. And then I could do a comparison between and these are the two main candidates. Right. I could also make it more general if I don't want it to be on campaigns and elections alone. Just general search interest. So it could include non-campaign related issues. It could include anything about their personal life or gossips or anything, right? That's not tied to their campaigning. So then I could download this data. Once I download this, then I can go onto Flourish, right? Where I will, of course, need to sign in. So once I've signed in, I hit on new visualization. And then I could go and do a line chart race. You have like dozens. So it's like, this is basically graphic design for dummies, right? Because you don't need to know how to do coding. You don't need to be able to draw well. And then after, you can just do a chart, a simple line chart race. And you can then just input the data that you got from trends that you downloaded, and then just have it like copy pasted here. So basically you just gotta hit download. So usually this is what people would do. That's how you can use trends data to like create like a visualization. I'm not sure specifically what you're looking for, like what kind of Google data you're referring to, and what Google data would you use to create other data? So the question is a bit confusing for me. But in general, if you're talking about how can I use trends data to create a visualization, that's how you can do it. Besides using trends, like I mentioned, especially during election season, you could use Flourish for many, many things. You could also use Flourish, which King, the other trainer, will cover later this week, is how can you use Flourish to do like electoral results mapping, right? Like you could see every constituency, who won by how much is the votes, political party, and then you can also then color that on a map. There are also other things like on polling day as results stream in live after polling center close. You could also do a line chart race, but you need to key in the data manually yourself, of course, with like, updates on like when results are streaming in from different polling centers. So you can see the candidates, all the different candidates, maybe within a seat or like your major candidates on the chart. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, then we'll end the session here for today. I'll let you guys go back to work. If there is anything, you can always email me at this email, Trinna@google.com. It's very easy to remember. Thank you.